Okay, in our revision, basically, we were discussing about the plants and also the different morphological features or morphological characteristics of the parts of these plants. The වෙනම එක කොටස් ඒ වගේ මොනවාද වෙනස්කම්. Right? We discuss about that, and actually we need to compare these things. Right? You can see we have discussed about the root system, then we have discussed about the stem. After that, we discuss about the plant leaves, and then leaves a part of the plant leaves, then how we can divide leaves based on the venation. So there are branch or the reticulate venation or the parallel venation, right? Parallel venation, where most of the plants, these are basically where the fiber root system exist in these plants like bamboo, coconut, arecanut. So there is fiber root system and also the leaf venation. Right? Leaf venation, if you take, the venation is parallel venation and the other one reticulate venation. We discuss about that. And let's summarize the things that we have learned about the different parts of the plants, Actually, we need to discuss about the this part, the flower part of the plant very quickly. And after that, I will let you summarize by dividing those features and into a table. Table එකක් ගහලා ඊට පස්සේ බලමු මේ කොටස් වල විශේෂ ලක්ෂණ අපිට තියෙන ඒවා මොනවාද ඒවා ප්‍රයෝජන ඒවා summarize කරන්න. This summary will be very important. That is a kind of note that you can remember. Okay. Actually, we discussed in the initial stage, plants can reproduce by two mechanisms. One is called sexual reproduction. The other one is called asexual reproduction. Asexual or asexual reproduction. එකක් තමයි මේ යාලට පුළුවන් ලිංගික ප්‍රජනනය. ඒ කියලා කියන්නේ දැන් මේකේ තියෙනවා here you can see the female organs and male organs. And male part of the plant and female part of the plants. You can see here the flower consists of the following three parts: sepals, petals, and here gynoecium and androecium. So what is this gynoecium? So sepals and petals are for the attraction and the protection of the plant. So then it has a gynoecium, androecium, both O1. Right? So what is basically this androecium? Androecium is basically the male part of the plant. And if it is a gynoecium, it is the female part of the plant. ඉතින් අපිට වගේම ගස් වලටත් තියෙනවා male part, female parts විදියට ඒගොල්ලෝ male female විදියට කොටස් වලට බෙදලා. ඒතර මේ sexual reproduction වලදී තමයි in the sexual reproduction it is necessary to combine the male part and the female part and then generate seeds. That is in the sexual reproduction. But you know, plants are capable of asexual reproduction. නේද? වර්ධක ප්‍රචාරණය කරන්න පුළුවන්. So it can be done using stem. කඳෙන් හැදෙනවා, කොළ වලින් හැදෙනවා, මුල් වලින් අලුත් ගස් හැදෙනවා, අල වලින් හැදෙනවා. ඉතින් ඒ වගේ දේවල් තියෙන හින්දා අර sexual reproduction ම කරන්න ඕන කියලා දෙයක් නෑ plant වල. But still it is important to learn about that. So sepals basically you can see it's green color. දැන් වද වගේ එකක් ගත්තම ඔයාට හොඳට මේක බලන්න පුළුවන්. In the shoe flower it's very clear. Sepals are for the protection of the plant. And petals are basically colorful. Why petals are colorful? You know, flowers are beautiful, right? Why these flowers are beautiful? What's the reason? Yes? Why flowers are beautiful? Why flowers are colorful? Jeff, yes?
To attract.
To attract whom? To attract us? How attract කරන්න? හරි, attract කියන එක හරි. That's correct. To attract animals. So what's the reason? ඇයි මේ සත්තුන් attract කරගන්න?
For their pollination?
Yes, for their pollination, right? So it is necessary to attract these insects and some animals for the pollination. Pollination is where here you can see the stamen and the stigma. No? Then may තියෙන style, stamens, and sema. So let's go to the male part of this, and you can see the filament and the anther. In this anther, there are pollens. The male part of the flower is called androecium, which consists stamen. Each stamen is made up with two parts. Stamen කියලා කියන්නේ මේකට. Stamen එක හැදිලා තියෙන්නේ දෙකකින්. එකක් තමයි anther එක, අනිත් එක filament එක. Right, the function of androecium, so production of pollen. Pollen කියලා කියන්නේ චූටි අර dust එකක් වගේ තියෙන මේක අතින් අල්ලලා බැලුවම ඔයාලගේ අතේ ගෑවෙනවා. If you touch this flower, especially this anther, so there is a small dust like thing. දැන් මේක අර සුවඳ බලන්න යනකොටත් සමහරට කිවිසුම් එහෙම යනවා. Sneezing, why? The reason is this pollen. මේකේ තියෙන පොඩි pollens ඒවට සිංහලෙන් කියන පරාග කියලා. ඒක පුංචි dust එකක් දූවිල්ලක් වගේ. සමහර වෙලාවට flower එකට පොඩි තට්ටුවක් දැම්මම ඔයාලට පේනවා මේ dust එකක් වගේ යනවා. This is pollen. මේ pollen තමයි මේ important දේ. මේ pollen ගිහිල්ලා ovary එක ඇතුළට යන්න ඕන. මේ pollen එක තමයි male part එක. Right, different. Here you can see lotus, sal, all these are having this stamen. Stamen එකක් මේ හැම එකෙම මේ රේණු තියෙනවා. ඒතර මේ රේණු වල අග තමයි මේ anther එක තියෙන්නේ. filament එක කියන්නේ ඒක දරාගෙන ඉන්න එක. It's the connector basically. You can see now. ඒතර මේකේ තියෙන pollen වල pollen මේකේ තියෙන පරාග ඒවා touch වෙලා මේ තියෙන stamen. When you touch or when an animal or insect touch it, එයාලගේ ඇඟේ මේවා ගෑවෙනවා. Then through stigma and style, it can be moved to the ovaries, inside ovary. ඒතර මේකේ ඇතුළට මේවා යවන්න ඕන. මේ stamen එකේ තියෙන මේ pollen පරාග මේ flower එකේ තියෙන female part එකට යවන්න ඕන. සමහර වෙලාවට sometimes, right, you need to know that sometimes some flowers are not having the male part and female part in the same flower. එකම මලේ female male දෙකම නැති වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Right. එතකොට androecium only flowers තියෙනවා. Gynoecium only flowers තියෙනවා. සමහර ඒවා androecium gynoecium දෙකම තියෙනවා. Here, see, let's see this androecium only. Oh, sorry, I need to English. So some flowers are there. In those flowers, so only the androecium part is there. Here you can see this one. In this flower, still, can you see the gynoecium? Yeah, gynoecium is also there. But mainly the androecium, you can see the highlighted part of the androecium. And some flowers are there where you get, the main visibility is or main availability is only the androecium. So what about this? So typical that they are showing both, like they are showing both together. Most of the plants like they are having like this together, no? So mostly lotus, so this you can see. So let me show something. Anyway, so when I remember the name, I will show you the picture. So just give me some time to, like, still it's not coming to my head for some reason. So I will explain, but anyway, for the moment, just focus on this. So here, so stamen, and you can see the stigma. So when these animals touch this stamen, or maybe that can happen even due to the wind. උලඟට වෙන්න පුළුවන්. හරි? උලඟට යන්න පුළුවන්. සත්තු touch කරලා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. කොහොම හරි when this happens, this pollen will move to the ovary through the style. Right? The style එකට ovary මේවා pollen යනවා. අපි පොඩ්ඩක් මේක බලමු මේ pollination process එක චුට්ටක් අපි පොඩි වීඩියෝ එකකින් බලමු, then you can get an idea. Meanwhile, I can show you the one with only with androecium. Okay, here pollination. So can be happen due to wind or can be due to insects, so anything, right? Single American paragane.
This video on pollination is part of a series on plant reproduction. You'll need to have a basic understanding of the parts of a flower, so feel free to go back over and watch the video on that if you need to. Links are in the description. Sexual reproduction in flowering plants requires male gametes, produced in pollen grains in the anthers, to fuse with female gametes found in the ovules. A pollen grain must reach the stigma before its nucleus can travel down towards the female gamete in the ovule. Pollination, the part we're covering in this video, is this step here, the movement of pollen from the anther to the stigma. In case it's not obvious, the definition for pollination is simply the transfer of pollen from the anther to the stigma. It can occur from the anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower, or to a stigma of a different flower on the same plant, or to the stigma of a flower on a different plant.
So here, so it's having both organs matured in this. So you can see this can be happen in the same flower. එකම එකේ වෙන්න පුළුවන්. තම යාටම pollination වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඒ plant එකේම වෙන flower එකකට වෙන්න පුළුවන්. And it can even be to another plant in a distance. Right? These three types of pollinations you can see. But typically in the same category. හරි එකම වර්ගය වෙන්න ඕන. නැත්නම් බෑනේ නේද? දැන් අඹ ගහක පරාග ගිහිල්ලා පොස් ගහකට ගියාට හරියන්නේ. අඹ පොස් කියන එකක් හැදෙන්නේ. It should be same mango no? It need to be mango.
Pollination involving the same plant is referred to as self-pollination, regardless of which flowers are involved. Pollination involving two flowers of separate plants is called cross-pollination. Note that these are different plants, but of the same species. We're going to look at two strategies that different plants have to make pollination happen. We'll look at insect-pollinated flowers and wind-pollinated flowers. We'll start with insect pollination. Flowers that rely on insects have several strategies to attract them. They tend to have brightly colored petals, which are appealing to insects, as well as a strong scent that they like. Many flowers also have nectaries, which produce nectar, a sugary substance that insects feed on. Notice that the nectary is located far below the anthers where the pollen is produced. As an insect visits a flower to get its fill of nectar, it can't avoid getting pollen from the anthers trapped on its body. The pollen grains produced by insect-pollinated flowers tend to be sticky or spiky, so it's really easy for them to cling to an insect's body. Obviously, these insects aren't stopping at just one flower. As they carry on visiting other flowers, some of those pollen grains trapped on their body are bound to get deposited on the next flower. Some of these pollen grains will land on the stigma. The stigma of this type of flower is a sticky structure, ideally suited for pollen to attach to. Some insects are actually pollen eaters. They visit flowers to eat the pollen itself. This might seem very unhelpful to flowers, but it's just a simple trade-off. While insects are feeding on the pollen, they'll no doubt get some trapped on their body. Flowers can afford to sacrifice some pollen to insect consumption, provided at least some of it is trapped and transferred on the body of that insect. So, insects gain a food source from flowers, whether it's nectar or pollen, or both, while flowering plants gain an opportunity to reproduce thanks to the insects. This sort of relationship, where two organisms interact in a way that they both benefit, is called mutualism. It's not only insects that act as pollinators. Some birds feed on nectar, and so as they go from flower to flower, they transfer pollen as they go. There are also many species of bat that feed on pollen or nectar, and there are even examples of lizards and geckos that are pollinators. Now we've looked at insect-pollinated, let's look at wind-pollinated flowers. If you haven't studied this before, you probably didn't know that these were even really flowers. You certainly wouldn't give them to someone on Valentine's Day. They don't look pretty or smell nice because there's no benefit to having large, colorful petals or producing a scent. They don't need to attract an animal. On these flowers, you can see the stigmas here, as well as the anthers. The structures may be a little more clear on this simplified diagram of a wind-pollinated flower. let's compare it to an insect-pollinated flower. Where insect-pollinated flowers tend to have anthers enclosed within the petals, encouraging insects and other animals to brush against them, wind-pollinated flowers have exposed anthers. This allows wind to catch the pollen released from them. Compared to the larger, sticky or spiky pollen grains of the insect-pollinated flowers, wind-pollinated flowers produce smaller, lightweight pollen grains, allowing them to...
Okay. Let me summarize what we have discussed here, right? Quickly. Hari. Then මෙතන ඉස්සලම insect pollination කියලා කියන්නේ අර පුංචි pruning වෙන එක. එතකොට when this here basically these insects are attract to the nectary. Nectary කියලා කියන්නේ පොඩක් අර මේ සමහරට අපි අර චූටි කාලේ වදමල් වල මෙහෙම කරනවා මේක තියලා මේකෙන් අපි මේ මොකක්ද සිංහලෙන් කියන්නේ මතක නැහැ. කොහොමද මේ කොටස මේ කොටස යට කෑල්ල අපි මේවා කරලා සක් කරනකොට නිකන් උරලා බොනකොට මේක අර පැණි රස මේව එකක් එනවා. ඔයගොල්ලන් සමහරට මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ try කරලා ඇති. try කරන්න යන්න එපා. වදමල් වල තමයි අපි try කරලා තියෙන්නේ. Have you tried something like that in your like childhood? ඔයගොල්ලෝ චූටි කාලේ බලලා තියෙනවද? වදමල් වල තියෙන ඔය nectary කියන එක. මේක පැණි රසයි. ගොඩාක් මල් වල තියෙනවා. ඒකට තමයි මෙයාලා attract වෙන්නේ. ගොඩක්ම bees ලානේ. ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉතින් එකතු කරනවානේ මී පැණි හදන්නේ. So they are collecting this for like bee honey, you know, and most like even a lot of insects are attracted to this. They really like this food ne, kamak ne. මේකට මෙයාලා ගොඩාක් attract. ඉතින් එතකොට here a sugary substance that insects feed on. එයාලගේ කෑම විදිහට තමයි මෙයාලා ගන්න. ඉතින් මේවා බොන්න එනවා. දැන් මේ මල් පැණි බොන්න එනවා කියන එකනේ කියන්නේ බඹරු වෙනවා කියන්නේ. Like they are basically coming to suck the like the nectar in this plant. So when it comes, so automatically what will happen? These pollens will touch. It will be spreaded all over their body. නිකන් මෙයාලා මෙහෙම ආවට ඒ ආපු හැටියෙම ඇඟ පුරාම ගෑවෙනවා මේ pollens පරාග ගෑවෙනවා. Then what will happen? So this is where the insect pollination happens. ඉතින් මෙයාගේ මේවා ගෑවුනාට පස්සේ then it will go to it will move to the ovary, this part. දැන් මම කියවනේ plants වල තියෙනවා සමහරලාට දෙකම තියෙන ඒවා තියෙනවා එකක් තියෙන ඒවාත් තියෙනවා කියලා මට picture එකක් මම පෙන්නන්නම් මේකේ okay අපි මෙහෙම search කරමු මට මේක search කරන විදිය ඇත්තටම මතක කරගන්න okay you can see this one. හරි දැන් මෙහෙම තියෙනවා දැන් ඔය අපි බලපු මල වගේ නෙමෙයි some plants they have like female version and the male version, right? This you can like here I think this is pumpkin seeds. ඔයාලා පොඩක් බලන්න පුතේ ඒක observe කරලා බලන්න, then you can identify. So because sometimes both are there, like now you can see previous one we observe both are there, දෙකම තියෙනවා. හැබැයි මේකේ දැන් තියෙනවා මේ මල් වල තමයි මේක තමයි ෆීමේල්, මේකේ තමයි ගෙඩි හැදෙන්නේ. මේක මේල් එකක්. ඒ දෙක අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් මෙන්න මෙතනින්. You can see this anther that is there here but it is not. එතකොට මේක තියෙන ඒවා මේකට තමයි යන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් some flowers like they are having both නේ. ඒ හින්දා ඒක ඇත්තටම ප්‍රශ්නකුත් නැහැ. Some flowers you are having both. ඒතර අපිට මෙහෙම කරන්නත් පුළුවන්. manually මේක මේව කරන්නත් we can take to a small brush like this and then spread it to the ovary, but don't do it like hardly, but you have to lightly touch it and then put it to the ovary. එහෙම කරන්න manually. එහෙම සමහරවිට කරනවා අර ගස්වල ගෙඩි හරියට හැදෙන්නේ නැති වුණාම හුලඟේම හරියට නැති වුණාම අපි මේක කෘත්‍රිමව පරාගණය කරනවා. අපිට පුළුවන් ඒක කරන්න. We can do that, right? So then that will be like then the pollination will happen and fruits will be produced. We are consuming fruit ne apita ona meke ඇත්තටම වර්ගය බෝ කරන එක නෙවෙයි. We are considering about the fruit part. Fruit is where the like fruit is the ovary basically. Fruit කියලා කියන්නේ යාගේ අර ඩිම්බ කෝෂය. ඒ කියන්නේ female මේවා තියෙන එක. ඒක තමයි fruit එක වෙන්නේ. So why it will become fruit? Because it need to protect the seeds inside. එයාගේ චූටි බබාලා තමයි seeds. ඒ seeds ටික protect කරගන්න තමයි fruit එක හැදෙන්නේ. අන්තිම fruit එක හැදෙන එකේ තව reason එකක් තියෙනවා. Like these animals are attracted to fruit as well නේ. And සත්තු මේ fruit එකටත් කැමති. ඒතකොට එයාලා මේ fruit එක කාලා මේ ඇට අරහෙමේ දාගෙන යනවා. ඒකත් එයාලට spread වෙන්න එක හේතුව. Right? That is also one reason where they can spread. Okay, here. So let's continue this video.
The pollen grains produced by insect pollinated flowers tend to be sticky or spiky. So it's
හරි දැන් මේවා එච්චරම දැනට අදාළ නැහැ, but still like it's better to know that, right? In your level this is not really important, but better to know that these are sticky. මේවා ටිකක් අර ඇලෙන මේ මේකේ තියෙනවා. හැබැයි හේතුව මෙයා animal මේ සත්තුන්ගේ insects ලක ඇලෙන්න ඕන. But if it is a wind pollination කියන්නේ හුළඟින් පරාගණය වෙන ඒවා තියෙනවා. If then
really
it
easy
will
for
be
them
like
to cling to an insect body.
no pain.
Obviously, these insects aren't stopping at just one flower. As they carry on visiting other flowers, some of those pollen grains trapped on their body are bound to get deposited on the next flower. Some of these pollen grains will land on the stigma. The stigma of this type of flower is a sticky structure, ideally suited for pollen to attach to. Some insects are actually pollen eaters, and they visit flowers to eat the pollen itself. This might seem very unhelpful to flowers, but it's just a simple trade-off. While insects are feeding on the pollen, they'll no doubt get some trapped on their body. Flowers can afford to sacrifice some pollen to insect consumption, provided at least some of it is trapped and transferred on the body.
දැන් මෙතන කියන තව point එකක් තමයි some like they are basically coming for the nectar, but some insects are coming for a pollen. හරි. එතකොට ඔන්න වැඩි තව අවුල් වෙන්නත් ඉඩ තියෙනවා. මොකද එයාට ඔන්න nectar දීලා pollen ටික ඇඟේ ගන්න. නේද? nectar එක කියන්නේ යාගේ beam එකනේ. එයාලගේ sugar base solution එක ඒක දීලා pollen ටික මේ insect ඇඟේ ගන්න බලාගෙන තමයි flower එකේ ඉන්නේ. The flower is waiting for the insect because that will be then pollen will be spread automatically. That will be done by these insects. But some insects are pollen eaters. Then that is unfair for the plant. Ne? The plant එක pollen spread කරන්න බලන් ඉන්නවා. මේ insects ලා ඇවිල්ලා pollen ටික කාලා දානවා. But here it is okay because there are like many pollens. So there are like several thousands of pollens. So they don't actually they don't rely on a single or one or two pollens. So let them eat some pollens, but යාලා ඇඟේ ගාගෙන තමයි කන්නේ අර පොඩි ළමයි කනවා. When they eat, some portion of the pollen will be attached to the insect body. So that will be used for the pollination. ඒවත් use කරන්න පුළුවන් pollination.
Body of that insect. So, insects gain a food source from flowers, whether it's nectar or pollen, or both, while flowering plants gain an opportunity to reproduce thanks to the insects. This sort of relationship, where two organisms interact in a way that they both benefit, is called mutualism. It's not only insects that act as pollinators. Some birds feed on nectar, and so as they go from flower to flower, they transfer pollen as they go. There are also many species of bat that feed on pollen or nectar, and there are even examples of lizards and geckos that are pollinators. Now we've looked at insect pollinated, let's look at wind pollinated flowers. If you haven't studied this before, you probably didn't know that these were even really flowers. You certainly wouldn't give them to someone on Valentine's Day. They don't look pretty or smell nice because there's no benefit to having large colorful petals or producing a scent. They don't need to attract an animal.
Okay, see, these are wind pollinated, very lightweight pollens, and they don't have colorful petals and sepals. They don't want. Why? Because they are not relying on animals. ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඕන නැනේ සත්තු ලව්වා මේ එයාගලගේ pollens යවා ගන්න. ඒ හින්දා මේවා මල් හැබැයි මේ මල් උනට ලස්සන නැහැ. කැතයිනේ. හැබැයි බර නැහැ. මෙයාලගේ pollen බර නැහැ. ඒ හින්දා wind එකෙන් හුළඟෙන් පැතිරිලා.
In these flowers, you can see the stigmas here, as well as the anthers. The structures may be a little more clear on this simplified diagram of a wind-pollinated flower. Let's compare it to an insect-pollinated flower. Where insect-pollinated flowers tend to have anthers enclosed within the petals, encouraging insects and other animals to brush against them, Wind-pollinated flowers have exposed anthers. This allows wind to catch the pollen released from them. Compared to the larger, sticky or spiky pollen grains of the insect-pollinated flowers, wind-pollinated flowers produce smaller, lightweight pollen grains, allowing them to be carried easily in the wind. And the pollen grains are usually produced in larger numbers to account for the fact that only a small fraction of the pollen that leaves the anther will find its way to a stigma of the same species of flower. Where the stigmas of insect-pollinated flowers tend to be sticky to allow pollen on insects to attach, the stigmas of wind-pollinated flowers are usually feather-like in structure. This makes it easier to trap pollen passing by in the wind. The next step for reproduction in flowering plants is for the male gamete to travel to the ovule where fertilization can take place. That's all covered in the next video, which is linked in the description.
Okay. So then the next important thing is fertilization. After the pollination, the fertilization. Pollination වලින් පස්සේ පරාගණය කියන්නේ මේ ටික යන එකනේ transfer කරන එකනේ. Then fertilization කියලා කියන්නේ ඒ ටික ovary එකට යන එක. Ovary එකට ගිහිල්ලා මේවත් එක්ක මේ තියෙන here you can see in the ovary there are ovals. Ovals are going to become seeds, right? ඒවා තමයි ඇට වෙන්නේ ඊට පස්සේ. Itin what will happen, this pollen will go and it will be interacted. It will be like basically like both will work together to make the baby, the next, that is the fruit, right? So that is called fertilization. Okay, that can be like explained in another day, not now, but just see. Now we have learned what are these sepals. Sepals basically the protectors where the plant, like these petals are protectors, and then the petals are the colorful attractors where, so this is basically, it is brightly, the colorful things are only there when it is insect pollinated. Hari the insect pollinated නම් තමයි colorful ඉන්නේ, නැත්නම් ඉතින් petals පාටක් නැහැ. මෙතන තියෙන එකේ ඉතින් භාගයක් හරි some insects ලා attract කරගන්න flower එකක් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්, එහෙම නැති වෙන ඒවාක් තියෙනවා. Androecium basically it's the male organ and male part, basically not male organ, it's male part of the flower where you can see the anther and the filament. In the anther you can see pollens. And gynoecium is where the stigma, stylus and ovary is there. Stigma කියලා කියන්නේ මේකේ කීලය කියලා කියනවා, කලංකය කීලය සහ ovary ඩිම්බ කෝෂය සිංහලෙන් කිව්වොත්. හැබැයි එහෙම මතක තියාගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ, no need to translate, just remember this is like a bottle where this stigma part of the bottle will attract the pollen, will basically stick the pollen. එයාට පුළුවන් නිකන් මේක අලව ගන්න pollen එක ටක් ගාලා මේක මේ වුණාම මේක magnet එකක් වගේ මේකේ තියෙන අර තියෙන ද්‍රාවණ ගතිය හින්දා ඒක ඇලෙනවා. ඊට පස්සේ stylus දිගේ තමයි මෙයා පල්ලහැට යනවා. sorry style එක දිගේ. Right? Then it will go to ඩිම්බ කෝෂය තියෙනවා, ඩිම්බ කෝෂය කියන්නේ මේ තියෙන එක, ඒක තියෙන ඩිම්බ වලට ගිහිල්ලා බද්ධ වෙන එක වෙන්නේ මෙතන. Right? So but anyway, so that part is basically the fertilization, that part is not there in your lesson. Then based on these fruits, right, diversity of the fruits and seeds also, we can categorize the plants. Food, seeds, diversity එකක් තියෙනවා. Some like there are like adaptations. So make it plan එක මේකනේ මෙයා spread වෙන්නනේ යන්නේ. It's going to spread from one place to another place. It's going to spread from one place to another place. So it can be wind, it can be even be, so that මේවා නම් හුළඟේ බරාඩුයි වරා වගේ දේවල්, කොට්ට, cotton, බරාඩුයි ඉඳ හුළඟෙන් යන්න පුළුවන්. And you can see the horror, මේවා නම් අපි අර කරකොල ඇවලත් බලනවා. Horror, gammalu, these things basically spread using the wind. But some are like it's tasty fruits. So what these animals do, they will eat and spread this. And some, these are actually not tasty, but anyway, these are adapted to float. මේවා පා වෙලා යන්න තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මේවා වතුරේ කොහේ හරි වැටුණොත් මේකට නිකන් කෙඳි වගේ තියෙන මේව එකක් තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒවා පා වෙනවා. පොල් වල දැකලා තියෙනවනේ වටේ තියෙන කෙඳි සහිත මේවා. ඉන්න පොල් ගෙඩියක් වැටුණා වතුරේ පාවෙලා යනවා. අරිකන පුවක් කොට්ටම්ම දිය කඳුරු ලෝටස් මේවා වතුරේ පාවෙලා යන්න තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒතර මේවා තව තැනකට යන්නේ හුළඟේ පාවෙලා මේවා වතුරේ පාවෙලා. And these මේවා නම් කියන්න ඕනේ නැහැ කොහොමද යන්නේ කියලානේ. You know how they spread because they are basically dispersed by the animals. ඒවා පතුරවන්නේ සත්තුන්ගේ ක්‍රියාකාරකම් වලින්. Okay. So finally in this lesson we need to know the monocotyledonous and the dicotyledonous. නැත්නම් ඒක බීජපත්‍රිතාවය සහ ද්විබීජපත්‍රිතාවය කියන එක අපි මෙතනදී කතා කරන්න ඕනේ. Basically the monocotyledonous plants මේක අපිට අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් when these plants in the germination process. Germination කියලා කියන්නේ මොනවාද? බීජ ප්‍රරෝපණය. එතනදී පියල් දෙකට නෙවෙයි තනි පියල්ලට තමයි කියන්නේ පෙති දෙකකට බෙදලා ඉන්නේ monocotyledonous. But dicotyledonous means you can see basically two leaves in the initial stage. That is very easy to identify in the germination process. මෙතන පින්තූරයක් තිබ්බොත් බලමු අපි. You can see here, this is some dicotyledonous, germination of the dicot seeds. You can see there are here cotyledons and there are two leaves emerging from them. But here in this cotyledon, so it's only one seed. And also, you can see the taproot system there. Here, fibrous. Make it මූදුන් මුල් මේකේ තියෙනවා මේ මොනවාද කෙඳි fibrous roots නේ තන්තු මුල්. අතට මේකේ මුදුන් මුලක් තියෙනවා. ඒ විතරක් නෙවෙයි if you see the leaf basically leaf there are so mostly it's a reticulate venation, right? Reticulate venation, but here it will be parallel venation. ඔක පැහැදිලිව අපිට දැන් අඳුර ගන්න පුළුවන් එකක්. දැන් කීපයක බලුවනේ. So basically this single if there is a single seed leaf like paddy, areca nut, පුවක් වගේ දේවල් pol, coconut, areca nut, paddy. So there are some set of features. But if it is like two seed leaves like bean, cashew, tamarind and all, so there are certain set of features. What are the features? Finally, you can see them here. So here in the monocotyle or monocot plants, so only one seed lob, but here in the dicotyle, two seed lobs are petty. And its stem is basically not branch under normal circumstances. Pol, kitul, puapage deval, atu bedenne ne. Samane. Normally it's not branch. But in the dicotyle, it is basically dicot plants. You can see the branched stem. Leaves are basically parallel, but dicot it is reticulate. And basically the flowers කියන ඒවා three petals or its multiples ඒක වෙනස් වෙනවා පුතේ. But dicot basically 4-5 petals or its multiples. It can be changed, but mostly this is ගොඩක් දුරට මේක. Okay, under today's exercise I just need you to do one thing before we finish. That is not a small thing, it's a big activity. What you need to do is you need to write down specific functions related to this specific parts of the plants. Let's take a table first and I will write there I will write the features, I will write the components. What you need to do is you need to include the features related to that component. Right? Please write parts of the plants and importance of parts of a plant and functions or importance. Okay, let's create a table. One thing is root, stem, leaf, flower, seeds, branches fruit. Did we write fruit? No. Fruit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This can be deleted. Then let's write the importance. Here in single medium note, I have given some importance of this. Okay, let's write down for one thing. The remaining thing you can, fruit basically absorbing water and nutrients. That is one thing. Okay, first of all, please create the table. Just create the table like this. Wait. You can create this table quickly. While you write, you can listen. So one main thing is absorbing water and nutrition. You know that. The jalaya saha portion ravi uragannika pasen. And anchoring the plants to the ground. Anchoring kila kiyane tama hitawanne plant එක ground එකේ. Anchoring the plant to the ground and providing stability and support. පොළවේ ඉඳ හිට ගන්න ගහට උදව් කරන එක තව important. Storage of nutrition and carbohydrate. සංචිත මුල් කියලා කියන storage foods are there. You can think about this sweet potato, right? Then many. So these are storage roots. We have discussed them in our book, right? Yeah. There are storage roots. Wait, assume. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen. Okay. And we have discussed about this. Here you can see. Many egg, beetroot, carrot, sweet potato, mimos. This actually is up to sweet potato. These are storage. Okay, now you can on this. Sorry, not this. So then storage of nutrition and carbohydrate. Transporting water and nutrition to the rest of the plant. Mainly, this is the start of transportation. And another thing is interacting with the beneficial soil organisms like bacteria to basically produce nitrogen and nutrients. So we saw that in mimosa plant and also beans and other things. Moolagatikil bacteria වලින් යාලත් එක්ක එකතු වෙලා nitrogen පසට එකතු කරන්න ගහට එකතු කරගන්න උදව්. Then preventing soil erosion මේක indirect එකක්. හැබැයි පාංශු කාදනේ ගස්වල මුල් වලින් හින්දා තමයි පස් හේග යන එක අඩු වෙන්නේ. Okay? Preventing soil erosion by binding soil particles together. Respiration, respiratory roots are there which can do the respiration, and also this photosynthesis. Some roots are there where support photosynthesis. So we have this above ground orchid-like thing having this above ground roots which support photosynthesis. These are basically greenish. And supporting as climbers, climbing routes are there. That is also another benefit. All these things are there in the book, right? When you go to the book, you can see them. Different type of routes here. Aerial routes, basically, aerial routes are supported respiration. Respiration. It's aerial routes are supporting absorbing the atmosphere, like absorbing water vapor in the atmosphere, as well as photosynthesis. And this other one, which is respiratory routes, are basically supporting respiration, like cuddle. All these things are there. Okay. I have just integrated them and summarized. But I have summarized. Let me know once you're done, finish. No need to write everything, but just write the given thing. The other thing you can do it as a homework. Okay. Indicate if you have done. Message it up done. Make a chat done. When you're done, send a message. This is not related to science, but still I need to teach. And when you're done with something, do communicate. Send a message. So I'm done. Shall I leave? That is not a big thing. No need to even call sir, but you can just tell the message, send the message, pass it to me. I'm done. Can I leave? Right? So that is the good way of doing that. Or sometimes you are joining classes accidentally. I have seen this enough times. Some students join in accidentally. But they are, when I ask a question, they are silent. After a few seconds, they leave. Then I don't know what they are really doing. Maybe they might not interested. Maybe they join wrong class. They can indicate that. At least send a personal message, say, so I joined wrong class. So shall I leave? So likewise, follow the basic etiquettes and also do communicate in the online environment when something is asked. Okay, I will stop from here. Then good night. See you all next week. Okay, goodbye.
It's Thank you, sir.